So you're welcome back now, and this is the next section we're going to look at, which is looking at building your skills, and we're looking specifically at food and culinary skills. And this is one of the few opportunities, I think, really in the programme itself to really build the capacity around some of your more practical skills around food and eating. I think it's also important to remember that two things you really need to keep an eye on here is hygiene and safety. So it's just really important. You see myself and Anne, we're wearing gloves. And gloves can do two things, specifically around sensory issues. A lot of preparing fruit, a lot of preparing different types of foods that can have a really tactile impact. And that can have a really kind of a sensory overload experience for a lot of young autistic children working with foods. So actually wearing gloves, or two pairs of gloves, can actually reduce that sensory impact and allow them to experience maybe the foods in a way that they might not normally do, but it's also much more hygienic to be able to do it that way.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at breakfast, we're going to look at some really simple lunches, and we're going to look at the idea of a picnic and explore that a little bit further. Now, what we're going to do is in the booklet and in the workbook we put together some really different ideas, activities around extending this. This could be a piece that you do maybe every morning as part of the programme, or it might be something that you do for a full day or a half a day. Again, it's down to the young person to explore what areas they're going to find this more interesting, as well as the associated activities. So I'll hand over to Anne.
Great, perfect, thanks Billy. Yeah, and we're just going to look at breakfast, and I suppose how can you integrate that into the programme? Every morning they're going to have breakfast. So what is their favourite breakfast? And even to start at that point with them, and in the worksheet you'll see that where there's the menu there where they can write down what they like for breakfast. Now you can see here we have very much, we have our fruit, we have our juices, we have our egg, our milk, and we have our brown bread. But that's only a small proportion of what the options would be for breakfast for them. And I suppose as Billy said, that just getting them to choose the fruit that they would like to cut, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will do it all. So we'll just sample some of it. We'll use fresh juice as well as our processed juice, because depending on the situation, they might be able to actually have their own juice that morning or whatever. And the whole idea of breakfast, of course, is we're breaking the fast. And for young people, sometimes they don't realise that how important breakfast is for them to get started in the day, and that they have the energy to actually get through the day. And some of them might be inclined to wait until later in the day, in the morning or even lunchtime. Sometimes you might find that in secondary school. I'm not sure how in primary school that would work, Hannah.
I suppose it's different for every child, and particularly for autistic children and young people. Hunger can really be impacted by sensory issues. Some may actually find it difficult to tell if they're hungry. They may find it difficult to actually read their hunger cues. That's not just young children. That's can be a part of autism. So it's just planning it to suit the child or the particular young person that you're working with. So perhaps at breakfast time, really all they're able for is a yogurt or just something small, and then later in the day they're able for a little bit more. But those are things that you can work on as well through this aspect of the programme, is learning to identify those hunger cues.
Okay, perfect. And as well as that, I suppose this can be built into a wider piece as well, because you can actually take them down to the supermarket and maybe they can pick out the fruit that they would like, because we're going to look at making a fruit salad. And even when I do this in school with my own students, I always just say to them to pick 4 fruits that they like, rather than it just being a prescribed fruit, because if they're not going to eat it, there's no point in actually learning how to prepare it. So that's one aspect of it that you could build in as well, that they actually go shopping or make a shopping list. And in the workbook as well, we have the whole idea of around the world, and what does breakfast look like around the world, because we have a very set idea, I suppose, of what breakfast is like here. We have our cold aspect, which is our continental, as it might be termed, with our fruit and our cheese and our meats and the breads and things like that. And then we have the cooked breakfast, which traditionally in Ireland, I suppose, we have that full Irish breakfast, which is your bacon, your eggs and your sausages and things like that, which obviously people are very familiar with and we're not going to make here today. So again, we're just going to do scrambled egg actually. We're going to make that as part of our cooked breakfast, because the protein in the egg is actually really important for children, teenagers. And then we're just going to use a small bit of milk, and we have our porridge bread, which again we're not going to make, but again you have the recipe in the workbook, where that would be very high in fibre for them as well. So they're kind of the two aspects. We're going to do our fruit salad, we're going to do our scrambled egg, we're going to make a smoothie, because sometimes on-the-go breakfast is actually what our students have. So this is a really easy way for them to get a breakfast to start off the day. And then we have a few bits of melon as well, because you know, melon is easy to prepare. It can be prepared the night before, and it can be a grab and go kind of a breakfast thing for the students. So that's kind of what we're going to set out to do. So I think, Billy, you're going to prepare the watermelon?
Yeah, I'm going to prepare some of the fruit.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is prepare some of the fruit for both the fruit salad and for the smoothie.
Yeah.
The most important thing when you're preparing any fruit, an awful lot of people, and certainly on a sensory level, things like eating an apple can be real hard work. There's an awful lot of sensory impact into biting into an apple. You're managing how much piece of fruit you're getting off in the mouth at the one time. And in a lot of cases, you're not going to eat, you know, half a melon or a whole apple, or big chunks of fruit like that can be very difficult. So when you're preparing fruit, think about the size you're going to prepare the fruit. Think about how you're going to store the fruit. So actually taking 5 or 6 pieces of fruit together, as Anne said, specifically ones that you like. And you can store them in the fridge in a Tupperware container, and then you're taking a small amount of them to make your smoothie. They will generally store for about 3 to 4 days in the fridge once you've prepared them well, and we're going to use a little small bit of lemon juice to keep them a little bit fresher when you're adding them in. So the first thing when you're preparing fruit, and this is a really good example, this is just a small mini watermelon. You'll see even the shape of that, it naturally moves on the chopping board. So again, for health and safety, when you're preparing any fruit, what's really good is just create a flat surface first. And by creating that flat surface, you're going to have less movement, and you're less likely for the fruit to move when you're cutting it, and it's safer. And then when you're using a knife, whether it's this or a smaller knife, always keep your knuckles back. Always keep your fingers back, so that you're using your knuckles just to guide as you move into the fruit. Now, the thing about the smaller watermelons is it's the larger ones, you will see the seed section very clearly in them. With the smaller ones you won't. Now you can absolutely eat those seeds, there's no problem at all with eating those seeds, or you can actually scoop them out. And there's a number of different ways to prepare melon. One of the more traditional ones is using a melon baller, and you can literally just scoop out small balls of melon, but you can do that with a spoon as well if you wanted. One of the ways I find nice to produce, to prepare melon, is to cut them into sections. So you have a piece of melon a little bit like that. And then, now again, you have to be careful with this, and generally I'd use a smaller knife. If you just cut the skin off, so you're removing the skin, and you just have that small piece of melon then, and then you can cut that up in a number of different ways. Now, one of the nice things about melon for breakfast is you're not getting a very strong flavour from melon, and the texture of it is very, very manageable. So it's actually, and it's a really good one for kind of filling you up.
And it goes really well with Parma ham or something like that, you know, on the, you know, or the smoked hams or something like that, when you put the melon with it, if you wanted to have that contrast in flavour as well. And some kids like ham, you know, and that basically you could introduce them to some other types of ham as well, the cured versions.
Now again, with melon, depending on if you're putting it into a fruit salad, you will tend to cut it into smaller sections.
And I suppose, Billy, that might be the piece that younger kids might be able to do what you've just done there. Because actually taking the whole melon, the watermelon there, can be quite daunting, you know, with the large knife and things like that. And from a safety perspective, it might be, because you could actually use a bread knife to do that bit that Billy has just done there. You don't necessarily need the sharp knife.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you could use any kind of instrument for just cutting through it, you know.
So I think that for younger kids, that might actually be a safer way for them to do it.
And if you're putting this into a lunchbox, you know, rather than necessarily putting a lot of knives and forks and stuff with it, you can just even use, you get those little small plastic forks, or a plastic toothpick, and that can be used
Yeah.
actually to eat as well.
And we'll come back to this later on when we're looking at the picnic, because actually what we can do with this, we can freeze it and we put it into our lunchbox and take it on our picnic. So by the time we come to eat it on the picnic, it's actually chilled, but it's after softening. So that can be a really nice thing to do as well for the picnic.
Now, so we have 1 full bowl of melon there from half a melon.
And that's a small melon.
Yeah.
You know, so you can imagine how much you'd get if you had the larger version. So
Now, when preparing apples, the way I find easiest to prepare them, to take out the core, is to just cut the apple into 4, place one of the flat surfaces down, and just cut a small angle in like that. And what you're doing there is you're just taking out the core, and again, that core piece can be very difficult to eat. And for a lot of young people, especially with texture issues with food, that core can be very unpleasant in the mouth.
There can be a lot of anxiety as well around, you know, when to stop them, when I'm going to hit the pip and hit the core as well. So knowing that it's not there can reduce that anxiety in eating that kind of food.
and what can actually be really useful as well, maybe for the younger kids, is that, you know, the apple core, you know, the one that you actually get that slice that goes right through it.
Yeah.
And again, you will automatically get it into this size shape that Billy has here. And again, for the younger ones, you know, you're not going with a sharp knife then, and they're able to cut this bit then again with a bread knife.
And again, when you're cutting the apple, remember, depending on the apple, this is a red apple, so it's going to be a softer texture in the mouth than the green apple. Something like a Granny Smith apple is going to have a much stronger crunch, and the flavour it's going to be more tart. So that you're going to get a stronger sense in the mouth, whereas with the red apples, they're a softer apple, or the
Golden Delicious.
Again, just consider the right, not all apples are going to have the same texture. So it's finding an apple that works and it is a texture that you're actually
And the other thing with the red apple, and I would normally suggest the red apple as well in school, is because of the colour. That when you actually make your fruit salad, it's nice to have the contrasting colour, because the flesh of a lot of the fruit is kind of, you know, is kind of plain, I suppose. And when you have the fruit in it that has the red strawberries or berries or anything like that, will also provide that for you.
Now, so we're going to prepare some oranges, and we have a grapefruit as well.
Yeah.
But these are easy peeling oranges. So what they do is the peel comes off a little bit easier. There's a couple of ways to peel an easy peeling orange. Obviously, just move it in your hand first, just to loosen the skin up a little bit. Now, you can take the top off with just a knife, and then start to peel it. And I'm going to show you 2 ways. One is very simple, one a little bit more complicated, but can be really helpful if there's sensory issues with the orange.
And the pith as well, and the white on it.
So again, what we've done now is we've just taken the orange naturally into its shape, and you want to take off as much of that pith as possible, and you break it up into its sections. Now again, very simple way of having fruit, but for some young people, they don't like that sense of the skin on the orange. And there's a way around that. I'm going to show you that with the grapefruit, but it involves a little bit more skill. Just be a little bit more practice in how you do it. So again, with the grapefruit, I've just taken the base off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel it with the knife.
Probably for the younger kids, I don't think that would
No.
probably be something
No,
they
that
do,
would
you know.
definitely be.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're peeling around till you get to the actual fruit. And again, the thing about grapefruit is very, very good for you, but the flavour is very strong. And an awful lot of people just won't enjoy that flavour unless it's with other fruit. So putting it with something very sweet, so it works very well with banana, with strawberries, with melon, because it's the contrast of the flavours that work really well together. So very slowly, now again, this is a skill, and it might be something that you're demonstrating and then you're practicing, but be very careful about using this as a method with younger children.
And you could probably use a smaller knife as well,
Yeah.
you know, with students, that you wouldn't need to have the large knife.
Now, so what we've done is we've actually taken off all of the skin pretty much, and all you're going to do then, and you have the bowl just underneath your hand, and what you do is you can see the line of where the skin is, and you're literally just cutting out the individual segments of fruit. So you're cutting away from all the skin. So all you're getting is the actual fruit. Now you will be leaving some behind, and that's okay, because you're going to use all the juice. The downside of doing it this way is you're losing a little bit of fibre. The plus of doing it this way is you're getting a more accessible piece of fruit for a young person to eat.
And obviously you can do that with an orange as well, that's just
Yeah.
a grapefruit, but you
Yeah.
can do it with the orange as well. And the juice is going in there, so the acid then is going to be there to actually stop the apple from browning, because if we don't put that into it, it's actually going, the apple will go brown.
So you don't need the lemon then in that
Yeah,
case?
No.
yeah, because
Great.
Billy can squeeze it there now and we can toss it, and therefore it will help preserve it. And likewise when the banana will be added, it will do the same thing there.
And again, now those segments freeze really well, and even adding them then to water,
Yeah.
they're a really nice way of adding a little bit more fruit in a maybe in a more disguised way.
Yeah.
So we have some apple.
And banana and grapes then. Yeah.
Now again, banana very commonly used in smoothies. I'm going to use it to
Yeah.
make banana
Put some, yeah.
in a smoothie now.
Yeah.
So with the banana, you can just peel it generally, or you can just cut the top and tail off and peel it that way then. But bananas will brown if you don't use them or put a little bit of lemon juice or a little bit of grapefruit and acid on them. But what's actually great with bananas as well is if you chop up your banana and you freeze it, and then you put that frozen banana into a food processor and just blend it, you get ice cream. Without adding any cream, anything at all to it, and just frozen banana pureed in a blender creates the most beautiful ice cream. And if you put it in with maybe some frozen raspberries or any kind of frozen fruit, tropical fruit, you get a really, really nice ice cream, completely lactose free, sugar free, and very quick and gluten free as well. Will I put the banana in there?
Do. I'm going to get you to put 2 in there actually for me.
Yeah. Now again, sometimes you'll have a little bit of browning on the banana. It's no problem at all putting that into the mixer. All puree down. Just because a piece of fruit like that is a little bit darker, in the case of bananas, it just means that they're riper and the vitamins and minerals in it are a little bit more accessible. Do you want any other fruit for the smoothie?
No, I'm just going to stick with, but maybe you could add strawberries if you wanted. Do you know what I mean? That would be another one. But the strawberries and the bananas tend to be popular with kids, you know, because they're a little bit sweeter probably, and therefore the flavour pleases them more. Now, I have just a strawberry yogurt, but likewise you could just use a natural yogurt, you know. There's no problem with that, and it just gives it a little thicker consistency. If you don't, you can leave out the yogurt. Let's say if the student that you're working with doesn't like yogurt, you can leave it out and just use the juice, and you know it'll still taste fine. Maybe you'll add in a little bit less juice so that your consistency is a little bit better. So I'm not even going to use the whole thing. I'm just going to use about half it. All right, so it's roughly about 2 tablespoons that I pop in there. Like that, and then the juice then, so we have the orange over there. Sorry Billy, can I just get that orange there? Thank you. Right, so with that orange, like we've used it in the fruit salad there, but likewise we can actually use it for the juice, for the smoothie. So simply pop it on here. If you don't have an attachment for your container, you could just have a normal juicer at home and use it like that. And again, this is something that all the kids can do, you know, even the primary kids, you know. Again, it's very safe, and again, you can see, and even if you wanted it, you could actually put in the juice before you put in the fruit, so they could actually see what they've actually achieved when they do that, you know. And like that comes away there, so it's easier just to, thank you, pop that in there. And if you were juicing a number of oranges, this might start to clog up a little bit. So just take it off, rinse it under the water and pop it back on again. in order to make sure that you maximise the juice that's coming from the orange. But again, you're using, you know, the full fruit there for the students, and again, they get to participate in putting it together. All right. So now you can see there's obviously not enough in that for actually a smoothie. So we just got simple orange juice here, and again, we'll just pour some in there. And of course, the freshly squeezed orange juice will flavour the juice anyway, you know, so you'll even get that from it. It's as simple as putting it on the blade like that, twist it around and pop it on, and off you go. And again, the younger kids can do this, you know, because all it is, if I could just get that turned on there, Billy.
And just for sensory issues on that, just
Yeah.
to note that, you know, some children and young people, they might find the sound of the blender quite overwhelming.
Okay.
But quite often, really what can be helpful with managing those kind of sensory issues is just to give a warning. So I'm gonna hit the blender in 3, 2, 1, and then they just have that chance to prepare themselves for the noise that they are
And what
going
about
to
them
hear.
actually pressing it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, they may need to.
Thank
Some may need to wear ear defenders. Some may need to say, "I actually can't be in the room for
Okay.
when we do that." Or some may not have a problem with it at all.
Okay.
But many really will just need that warning.
Okay.
So that they know that it's coming, because quite often it's the element of surprise with those kind of things that make them overwhelming.
All right.
Again,
Okay.
it's that social imagination piece that we were talking about earlier of not struggling maybe to predict what that is going to sound like and how I might react to it.
Yeah. And it's a simple one to do, you know, even in the mornings when they come into, you know, school, or, you know, when they get up at home, it's a very simple one to actually make every morning. And they can try different flavours as well, you know, and try out different fruits. So you can obviously, if you have the container, and you can put the lid on it like that, and off they go, basically. That's it. Easy peasy.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Or you can have these little plastic containers, which they might like as well, and you can just pop it in there, and off you go with a little straw, and to scoop.
And the other thing is, if you have the fruit prepared in advance, that process of making the smoothie in the morning is as quick as you would when making a slice of toast.
Absolutely.
But you're getting in 3 or 4 portions of fruit in one go, and you're really building up their capacity for the day. But for a lot of students who won't like to eat the fruit, that sensory experience of all of that biting and all of that different flavours, and
Smoothie's much more accessible in that
much
regard,
more
yeah.
accessible for the young person as well.
Many young people it'll be the skin that will kind of make it difficult to eat the fruit, depending on the texture of the skin, if it's slippy and that kind of thing. So the smoothies really are much more accessible in that regard.
And obviously if you put strawberries or raspberries into that, then it changes the colour. So it's not looking that colour then, so another morning it can be something different. Also, if you wanted to increase the fibre, if you wanted to put in some flaxseed or something like that, you get it really finely grated, and just pop that in there as well, and you're giving them the fibre as well for the day, which sometimes can be difficult to get into children, because sometimes they won't eat the foods that are high in fibre.
You can also, if you want, you can add actually some oatmeal, uncooked oatmeal, just the oats itself into the smoothie, puree that into the smoothie as well. And it's another way again of really getting a full breakfast in a drink form, nice and quick and nice and easy. And then we have our fruit salad. So really when you're assembling the fruit salad, it's very simple really. Here we have the melon, we have the gala melon here as well, which I'll just open up and show you. And again, always make sure that you're working from a flat surface. And again, you're going to see the seeds in the centre with the gala melon, so it's very important that the first thing you do is you take out those seeds, and normally they'll come out very, very quickly and easily, but it's that sense of, well, now I know the seeds are gone. And it's also important to remember that not all melons have the same texture and the same flavour.
Oh yeah.
So finding the one that you're going to like can make it much more accessible, and at least then you know what melon it is that
and
you're
they're
going
quite
to like.
distinctive colours on the outside, so it's easy to identify. Some of them are sweeter than others, so, and also the way Billy has it there, you could actually use that as a bowl for your fruit salad. You know, so if it was, we'll talk about the special occasion, so if it was a case that there was a special occasion, breakfast you were making, you could actually do your fruit salad in the melon bowl like that, you know, and it can look quite pretty.
So again, you can serve, and an awful lot of people were very happy to eat the melon in those slices just like that. There's absolutely no problem at all. Sorry. And again, very same way, making sure you leave the skin behind and slicing your melon up nice and small. So then all you do is, if you just hand over that last bowl around, please. So again, you want to make sure that you have a nice mix of fruit. One of my favourite fruits to use, I just buy frozen raspberries. I find them really great in smoothies. They're lovely in fruit salads because actually what they do is they keep it nice and cold. So if you're putting it in a lunchbox to bring it with you, they keep everything nice and cold. Then just we have a small mix of the apples, the orange, the grapefruit, some more melon.
And you see the contrast with the watermelon and the rest of the fruit there makes it more aesthetically pleasing for them as well to look at, I think.
And then seedless grapes are great because they're like nature's sweets, and the key is to be buying them as seedless as opposed to seeded, because it just means that there's less anxiety about eating them, and that if you bite into a seed in a grape, it can really be quite a strong experience in the mouth and it puts them off eating fruit. If there's a small bloom on the grapes, that small white dust on it, that's just yeast as part of the natural grape. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And having that nice mix now, and then you can very easily put some natural yogurt, just a little bit of natural yogurt over the top.
And you can also sprinkle your oats over that then again, just to give you the contrast in texture, and again the fibre in that.
But what's really great is to even experience the fact that in many ways you can have the very same breakfast in two different forms, and you're getting very different sensory experiences with both of those, and it's working out what's going to be the right experience for the young person, but also encouraging them to try different things and trying to explore different flavours and different textures. And there's so many fruits out there as well that you can add to it. So it might even be that as part of the programme, you might be doing a kind of a tasting experience. So buying loads of different fruit, preparing them in separate bowls, and then tasting them and trying them and seeing what you like and mixing them together and seeing what combinations work really well for you.
Yeah, and I think as well, I suppose, all of what we've done here is going to be stuff that we're going to talk about when we do the packed picnic. Because all of this can be actually taken away from where we live if we're travelling for half an hour or something like that. It might be 2 hours before we're actually eating, and that can transfer very, very easily. And I suppose the melon is a great one, the watermelon is great, and kids tend to like that as well, because if you cut it like a triangle, it can also be put on little, the lollipop sticks that you can get. So then it is like a little ice lolly when they're actually on.
And you can put them in the freezer then, then when they come out they really are like authentic fruit ice pops.
Yeah. So and that's something easy for them to do, that, because like if you cut the watermelon, let's say in the morning, you want to make sure that maybe that you can access all of it rather than wasting it. So the ice lollies are a great way of doing that, because even if you do them today, you can have them again tomorrow, and they're ready to go. So for our cooked breakfast, we're just actually going to do something simple like scrambled egg, and I think that's accessible, for all students as well. But again, in the workbook we have different egg types basically. So we're looking at the very basic boiled egg. Again, it's just the saucepan, the boiling water, and we actually show you how long to boil it for, depending on how they like the centre of the egg. So whether it's a soft, gooey, runny egg, or where they might dip their toast into it or their bread, or maybe they want something a little bit harder, let's say. Like say if we were making the egg salad for the picnic, we would have the hard-boiled egg because we want to be mashing it with mayonnaise and onions and things like that. So the scrambled egg is kind of the midway mark in one way, because poached egg, there's a little bit more skill involved in trying to make sure that you get the egg solidified. And while we can use the vinegar to do that, some kids mightn't like the taste. Sometimes you can taste the vinegar in it, so they mightn't like that. So this scrambled egg is probably one of the easier ones to do. And if we have the hob there, but if, let's say in the school you had a microwave, right? You can actually make the scrambled egg in the microwave, and it's really, really easy to do. Simple, even a measuring jug, a plastic measuring jug, the glass one, put your eggs into it, your milk, mix it up with the fork and pop it into the microwave for maybe 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes. So again, you don't have to have the hob the way we have here, and you could actually do it just with a microwave. So really all we're going to do is we're just going to crack the eggs into the bowl like that. We're going to use 3 for this one, but again, you know, with the students and their age, etc., you might decide to do one probably won't yield enough for them. But what you can do is you probably would use 2, maybe that would probably be the one to use. And then just a small drop of milk, maybe about a tablespoon. I'm just going to put about 2 tablespoons here in that one. And then just using your fork. Again, all of these utensils you'd have in your school or at home, and it's very simple to make up. And it's not going to take too long either. Again, breakfast being quick and simple, but this is extremely nutritious because you have your protein, and it's your high biological value protein which is in the egg, so therefore, you know, it's helping with the building blocks and the growth for the students and for the younger pupils as well.
Can I add anything to that now? If I wanted to put maybe some chopped ham or some chopped tomato, would I add it in at this stage, or?
For the scrambled egg, you could add it in now, or let's say if you wanted to maybe put smoked salmon or something with it, then you would do that afterwards, right? You wouldn't add that in right now. But this simple mixture that I'm doing now, you could also use it to make little mini quiches. You know, so if you had your queen cake tin and grease the queen cake tin, obviously you'd have more eggs here. You might have about 6 or 7 eggs here with some bacon, with some cheese, mix it all up. Using your jug, pour it into each of the queen cake holders, pop it into the oven, and about 12 minutes and you'd have little mini quiches. And again, they're really easy for breakfast. You can put them in a packed lunch, we could use them in the picnic. And again, the students can decide what flavour they would like themselves. Tuna can go into it, the cheese, the bacon, chicken, anything like that can actually be thrown in there. If you use tomatoes, just be very careful with the tomatoes because of the water content, and that can make it a little bit soggy. So Billy, you're already there? Yeah. So basically, all you're going to just pop it in. Okay, so we use the wooden spoon to actually mix it up because it will actually coagulate quite quickly, and therefore it can stick to the pan. So we don't want really that to happen. So we just pour it in there, give it a few minutes. And you'll actually notice, and you know, the students could help you with this because they can notice that it's starting to change colour as the coagulation is happening. The colour is changing around the outside. So what you're going to get them to do is you're going to get them to pull it in from the outside, and as they're doing that, then the rest of it is cooking as well. And literally just keep stirring it around like that. And very good. Now some students will like it really, really watery as scrambled egg, and other people will like it dry. So again, that's a bit of exploration that you can do actually with the students themselves. Which way would they prefer it? You know? So that's nearly cooked there. Alright, so I'm going to get, thanks Billy, just to turn that off. So as you can see, it's very, very quick. Alright, and that was the conduction hot there. And basically all you're going to do is we have the porridge bread here. Now you could use the brown bread, you could use toast, you could use a baguette, you know, whatever the student actually likes. Some kids probably wouldn't want anything. You know, they just have a bowl of scrambled egg.
No, I like that on some brown toast with some grated cheese on top of it. So I put a bit of cheese on top of that now, as opposed to putting cheese through it.
Yeah. Could you put cheese through it, or would you put it on only after?
Towards at the very end.
Yeah, because it will start to melt, but as you can see, it doesn't take actually that long to actually cook. And if you had, if you wanted to with them, you could actually get them to put a little bit of parsley or something on it, just to give the contrasting colour basically. Or if they liked the bacon, you could cook some streaky bacon, and they could put that on top of it then as well if you didn't want to go through. So there'd be different ways, again, depending on the student and what they wanted. But very simple, what does that take? A couple of minutes, and they have a really healthy, nutritious breakfast.
But it's the kind of food that'll keep them satiated for much longer, so that sense of being full lasts for much longer, and there's less. Whereas if you're having a breakfast like very sugary cereals, things like that, you get a sense of fullness for a very short period of time, and then you get a dip, and that's when then you start to fill it with sugary drinks like Cokes, etc. You know, the drinks that are very, and if you're using those sugary drinks, you want to use the sugar-free version or the zero version, because again, you're not going to get those peaks and troughs of glucose in the blood throughout the morning, which can actually really affect your mood, and really affect your ability to concentrate throughout the day.
And often an activity to do with that, you know, and which they find fascinating actually, is if they actually investigate how many teaspoons of sugar might be in a drink that they normally would have in the morning, you know, and when they do that, what I would do in school normally with them is I would actually get them to measure out 7 or 8 teaspoons of sugar, because often that's how high it is, and when they actually see it in a bowl or in a glass, and they realise that's how much sugar I get if I drink that size can or bottle, you know, so that can be another exploration piece to actually look at with them as well, you know.
Okay, so thanks very much.